Greetings, booktubers, and welcome back to Grammaticus Books. What we got online for you here today is a good one. We've got a book haul from the Brattle Used Bookstore in downtown Boston, Massachusetts. So, just got in back from Boston this morning about 12:30 a.m. It's when the plane touched down. I think we got back about 1:30 in the morning. I had a fantastic trip. This was my wife's rodeo, her plan. Whenever she's doing the itinerary, you just got to grab a hold of her back of her purse strap with both hands and hold on for dear life. We hit everything. Boston was fantastic. We did Boston Common, Beacon Hill, Bunker Hill, the USS Constitution, Trinity Church, Old North Church. I had the best bowl of clam chowder I've ever had in my life. But by far and away, the highlight of the trip for me was at the Brattle Book Shop in downtown Boston. Now, I didn't say the Brattle Book Shop. I said the highlight was at the Brattle Book Shop, because at the Brattle Book Shop, in addition to seeing the Brattle, I got to meet Steve Donahue, fellow booktuber there at the Brattle. If you don't know Steve Donahue's got a great channel. He's one of the old guard of BookTube. His breadth and depth of knowledge on literary works is just unparalleled. He can speak intelligently and in depth on topics ranging all the way from Victorian history to Conan the Barbarian and everything in between. If you're not familiar with this channel, check it out. I can't imagine you're on my channel and haven't heard of Steve, but if you haven't, by some chance, I'll link his channel in the comments down below. So I got to meet Steve at the Brattle. He was delayed in getting to the Brattle. He was attacked by a pack of wild dingo dogs, which he eventually managed to escape from, made his way to the Brattle, and I got the pleasure of going around the Brattle with Steve and talking books and booktube with him there. And it was fantastic. It was really was the highlight of my trip. So what did I get at the Brattle? Well, I try to control myself. I try to keep the number of books that I own at a reasonable level so things don't go crazy. So I did try to have some self-restraint there, but I was looking for 3 books in particular. I was looking for a paperback copy of Dune, a reading copy, so I don't have to read the first edition over here. I do like to reread Dune, and mine has disappeared out of my collection. I think my daughter has it. So I was looking for that. I was also looking for The Hand of Oberon by Roger Zelazny to fill in that hole in the Corwin cycle of the Amber Chronicles, and I was looking for Armor by John Steakley. Now, of those 3 books, I figured Armor would be the hardest, and actually, that's the one that I turned out being able to get. There was no Dune, amazingly, at the Brattle. I think somebody had come in before me and had just wiped out all of Frank Herbert, and it was a bust on Hand of Oberon. But to my great surprise, they had Armor by John Steakley. So I was delighted to get this book. I would have really loved to have got the first edition cover, which is a better painting, sort of more of a vintage painting. I'm not thrilled with that painting, that cover, but I was thrilled to get this book. If you're not familiar with Armor by John Steakley, it's a book, it's very reminiscent of Starship Troopers by Heinlein. It's about a super soldier who has a alternate personality that emerges when he's ever in mortal danger, and this alternate personality allows him to survive situations that most humans can't. And the humans are fighting off this attack by a race of giant insectoid aliens, a la Starship Troopers, and they're outfitted in super suits of armor, atomically powered armor suits. But it's very much like Robert Heinlein, but there's a different twist to it. I read this when I was a teenager. I remember liking it immensely as a teenager, and I'm a little worried that the older, more mature Grammaticus may not enjoy this quite as much. I'm hoping that's not the case. I'm going to give it a try, and I'll let you guys know. If anybody out there has read Armor and has an opinion on it, I'd love to hear your opinion on it in the comments section. So that was the first book that I got. The second one was another science fiction, Search the Sky. It's a collaboration by Frederick Pohl and C.M. Kornbluth. It's satire. I'm looking forward to it. It's a real thin one. That should be a quick read. And then I found Soldier Ask Not by Gordon Dixon, which is actually a Hugo Award winner for the year's best science fiction. I hadn't heard of it. I saw it was an award winner. It's more military science fiction. So I was really looking forward to this one. It looks like that's going to be a real good one. And then I also picked up Hegira by Greg Bear. I do like Greg Bear as an author. And this seems like sort of a mix of science fiction and fantasy on a giant world. I'm wondering if this is going to be a little bit like Ringworld, but I'll let you guys know when I read it. And then I went off the science fiction path a little bit and out in the bargain lot that's outside. If you're not familiar with the Brattle, it's a used bookstore right in the heart of downtown Boston. It's 3 stories inside. On the top story, you've got rare books, and then you have different varieties of books on the second floor, all hardback. And then on the first floor, you've got more hardbacks, but you also got paperbacks along with classic vintage science fiction. And then they have an outdoor lot right next to them that is a sale lot where they've got at least 1,000 more books that they put outside in their sale lot that range in price from $5 to $1. And I got this out of the outdoor lot, and it's Charlemagne, a biography by Harold Lamb. This is a period of history. I really enjoy this period of history, but finding history books on Charlemagne is kind of difficult. There's a lot of people have written about it, but there's a dearth of information on that period of history because there's just not as much writing about it like there is with the ancient Romans and the ancient Greeks who had people writing about it there in those time periods, and you have a lot of volume of material where you can access the people who were actually living it to see what their take on the history was. You don't get that so much in Carolingian and Merovingian France, so I'm really interested to see what his perspective is on Charlemagne, and I really like Charlemagne. So I got that one. I was real happy with it. And then I found this book, which is in the fantasy section firmly and squarely, which is Bard by Keith Taylor. And I picked that one up for the cover. Really, I'm just kind of curious to see how good a book this is. Got home and I was entering this into my spreadsheet of all my books. Yes, I'm one of those guys. I keep a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet of all the books that I own, and I'm putting it in, and I see that I already have a copy of Bard by Keith Taylor. So at least I'm consistent in what I like in a cover that'll attract me. And this is a much better copy than one I got at the Brattle. But hey, you can never have too many of an issue of a book, right? And then the last book that I picked up at the Brattle that I got was an anthology. It's from 1946. It's a pretty good one. It's a hardback. Steve actually picked this book up originally. It was on the central desk on the first floor when he came in. And then he set it down, which I don't think Steve was interested in it. My apologies, Steve, if you wanted this one. So after he walked away from it, I picked it up and I flipped it open. It's from the golden age of science fiction. It's 1946. Let me put my cheaters on here. And it just had a great collection of golden age science fiction authors with stories in here. Let me just run down and give you guys a list of some of the people, the authors that are in this. It's got Robert A. Heinlein, Don Stewart, Lester Del Rey, Louis Paget, A.E. Van Vogt, Black Destroyer. I'm really looking forward to reading that one. It's also got Louis, where I said Louis Paget again. And then it's got Alfred Bester, Isaac Asimov. It's got L. Sprague de Camp. That's going to be a good one. The Blue Giraffe by L. Sprague de Camp. So I'm really interested in reading some Golden Age L. Sprague de Camp from 1946 or a little before and see what he was doing back then before he was doing Pastiche Conan. Frederick Brown and some couple others in here who aren't quite as well known. So this looked like a really good anthology. It's nothing at the Brattle is really expensive. So I grabbed this one here. It's still got the dust jacket on it. So I'm entering this one into my spreadsheet, and lo and behold, I've already got a copy of it as well. So I'm 2 for 2 on picking up copies of books that I already own. In my defense, the one that I own, which is this one here, it's missing the dust jacket. I think if I'd had the dust jacket on it, I would have realized that I already own this book. But anyway, now I've got this one, and I've got it with the dust jacket from 1946. So I'll take it. He'll call it a score. On scoring at the Brattle, I did get schooled by Steve Donahue. He was a little late getting there, so while he was there, I was going through the Brattle. I did the 3rd floor, the rare books, 2nd floor, got down to the 1st floor and went back to the vintage science fiction paperbacks and was going through looking at them. And got the ones that I picked out here. Steve shows up, and then we start talking, and he goes through, and inside of 5 minutes flat, and I've been there for at least 45 minutes, in 5 minutes flat, Steve found the complete Dorsai series by Dixon, and he found it in a Morrow novel, which, if you don't know Morrow, it's a fantasy world that's set from a African perspective with a African hero, and it's really great stuff. It's been on my want list forever. They're really super hard to find and come by. And inside of 5 minutes, he snagged the Amaro and had the complete Dorsai series. So I got schooled by a master there at the Brattle. Congrats, Steve, on those great finds. But I did get something else when I was out there in Boston as well. After the Brattle, my wife took us out and we wound up on Newbury Street, which is a big shopping street in Boston. It's an absolute zoo. And to get out of the zoo, we saw there was a comic book shop, and we went into the comic book shop. My wife's fantastic at giving me some leeway to indulge my hobbies. We went into this comic book shop on Newbury Street, and 95% of their merchandise inside of the shop was things other than comic books. It was t-shirts, it was hats, it was socks with Pokemon on it, it was Funko Pops, games, posters, records. And it's billed as a comic book shop. Keep this in mind. But in the back of the second floor, they have one wall of comics in the back. And that was it. Out of this comic book shop, it's maybe 5% of their merchandise. So I didn't have high hopes, but I went over to the Conan section, seeing if they had some of the alternate covers of Titan Comics' new Conan issues. And they only had issues 1, the covers on issues 1. They had nothing from 2, 3, or 4, which I thought was very odd. But there in the Conan, Titan Comics Conan, they had the incentive cover by Robert De La Torre, which for me, this is the absolute best of the covers that they came out in Titan Comics Conan #1. That just awesome black and white incentive cover. So I snagged that while I was in Boston as well. And that is pretty much my Boston and Brattle Book Shop haul. It was a pretty good one. I'm pretty happy with it, even with the duplicates that I picked up. Still was a great visit. It was awesome to see Steve out there. Steve, I'll come back out when it's not my wife's rodeo, when it's my rodeo, and I can dedicate an entire day to doing books and comics. I'll get this video up here today, and in Friday, I'm going to have another video up. That video is going to be a little bit of an unusual video. It's going to be a digression from the norm, but that's going to be a very good one to check out. So tune in on Friday. And with that, I'm going to say take care, be safe, and I'll catch you guys in the future.